nationwide?
Yeah.
Pretty
Right
much.
now?
Yeah, whoever we're live right now.
All right.
Wait, hold on. We got to put the let me
Here we
see
go.
the disclaimer.
Yes.
There we go.
Warning, the following presentation openly expresses things and shares without limitations and social divisions unless you count some of our hosts' lack of decency and bad jokes. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a vibe.
The lack of decency and bad jokes, obviously, because it's me. But hey, that's what it
Most of the
is.
time.
Yeah.
Everybody out there watching us, thank you for tuning in. Once again, this is Joey Zaza on behalf of Torre Del Viejo on the Shoot the Shit podcast. We have John here. Over there, we have Sandy. And right here, 2021 champion, Forging Fire, Fermin Lopez.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited.
We should,
Thank
man,
you.
I forgot to invite Bruce Buffer to make that intro.
He didn't
Thank you
get
for
back
having
at
me,
you?
guys. It's an
Didn't
honor
get
to
back
be here
at
with
me.
you guys.
Definitely.
The
Thank
honor
you
is
for
ours.
being here, sharing with us.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely.
So what everybody else missed was our small conversation that we had before we even started going live. I'm going to take advantage. I'm going to shoot it out there real quick. How difficult was it making that cavalry saber?
It was very difficult because when everybody saw the episode, my press actually broke. The gears broke
And
on
it got stuck, the Damascus billet, right?
Yes,
The
I was
billet.
going for a Damascus, and it actually broke, and the billet got stuck in there. So I had no way of getting that, because you have 20 tons of pressure, locking it. So I started looking in my stash, and I found an old leaf spring from an old Jeep, an old Army Jeep, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep on with the tradition of the military, and I went for it, and it actually worked out.
Yeah, I saw that detail.
Yeah.
And I said that's what had to happen. I was like, it had to be that leaf spring.
What seemed most difficult for me, because until that episode, I hadn't seen the guard, the knuckle guard, and the butt cap all in one piece the way you made it.
Yeah, that was even more difficult, because when I made it, I did it all in one piece. But when I went to put the wood in it and slide the blade into it, it was already made. So I had to actually split the wood in half and reconnect it once the tang was through.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I covered it with leather, and then I used gold inlay, representing the Golden Knights.
Nice.
The gold and the black. Yeah.
That was gorgeous. It was
Thank you.
beautiful.
I know.
And by the way, it is hanging on the wall on the show.
On the show, right?
Yeah, it's hanging on the wall. Yes.
Yeah.
I
That
did-
was a $10,000 blade.
They only keep the first place, right?
Yes, they
Or do
keep
they
the
keep the
champion,
ones-
the champion blade.
And all the other ones get.
All the knives that are made on the show are kept except the champion. However, on the final competition, the second place, the runner-up, they actually mail it back to them.
Okay.
Because it was not built on the show; it was actually built on their home forge.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Okay.
the blade
And they
smith-
stay with the first place because technically they paid you $10,000 for a sword.
Exactly. They pretty much bought it off of me. Yes.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
How come with these two weapons that are, from a layman's perspective anyway, kind of sort of similar, the cavalry saber and the U.S. Army officer's sword, when they presented the challenge that, this is what you're going to be making, how come for the cavalry saber you were like, ooh, yeah, and for the U.S. Army officer saber you were a little more like, oh, you literally said, oh, snap, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Because I caught myself. I was getting ready to say, oh, and then I was like, wait a minute. You're on national television. Watch what you say.
Yeah, you can't. You can't be now, man.
Exactly. But the reason why is because on the first one, I've never made a sword in my life. That was way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And when I saw the Army officer saber, even though it was an honor for me, I was like, coño, I've never made a sword before. I gotta, rearrange my brain on am I gonna do this? But on the second
it's not
part,
as simple as doing what you do in a knife longer. There's a lot more things you got to worry about, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's a lot more. You got to worry about the warping, hairline cracks. You got to worry about the angle, pretty much everything. But the second time when I went to do the cavalry saber, I already had a little bit of experience making a sword, so I was all excited about it. And again, it paid off.
Yeah, no kidding.
Plus, I had better equipment thanks to my wife. She kind of pushed me to get a big, tempering oven. So, yeah, that's you put it.
That's right. We know better.
Yeah, we actually, we were pretty lucky. We were pretty blessed because a friend of mine actually called me. He's about 3.5 hours away. He says, "Hey, I got a tempering oven for sale if you're interested." And I said, "Yeah, I'm on my way." So we made it kind of like a weekend getaway all the way to Tennessee.
Wow.
But yeah, it came in handy.
Nice. That's what's up.
Wow. Okay. Now, for people who are watching that don't know,
yeah, I know we jumped
what
right
exactly is a tempering oven, and why do you have to put the sword in the tempering oven?
Okay, hold on. Before you answer that question, Fermin, for those of you who don't know what on earth we're talking about, okay?
Yeah, we just completely glossed over the intro on that.
Like John Wayne, like John Wayne right there.
Yeah, right. So what are we building on? Okay, so we're talking about we have Fermin here. Our guest is from Taino Custom Knives. He's also a Forged in Fire champion. Forged in Fire is a show where you have these bladesmiths, right, that come in and they compete to create a knife according to the parameters that are stipulated in the competition, and they have to be able to do it within X amount of time. Correct. And then it's kind of like a process of elimination until you have the last two standing, and then whoever it is that is able to build the better weapon, after it's tested by the judges and critiqued and tested by the judges, they become the Forged in Fire champion. They get a prize, and basically they buy their weapon from them. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's extremely addictive. If you're gonna watch anything, I'd rather you watch that than the Housewives of I don't know what. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and I have to interject real quick. I'm sorry. I have to throw this in there. Yes, it's a show that has a competition in it and whatever. I think it's more like a competition that the cameramen are just lucky to be there, because the level of understanding of metal and how to move it and what to do with it is insane. It's absolutely insane. With just having David Baker there himself is like, what the Ben Abbott. Oh my goodness, dude. The more I learn about this dude, is like, he's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
El tipo es una máquina. The way he just woof. So yeah, I'm sorry. I had to throw that in there.
And I'm sorry, Fermin, if I threw you off track there, but I just wanted to have people understand what we're talking about and
absolutely
and understand why
we go back to the tempering
out right now.
Right. So yeah. So a tempering oven is actually an oven that heats up the entire blade at the same time, and you can actually control what temperature to the degree. You don't need a tempering oven. You can usually, pretty much use your forge, or you can use a torch. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It's just that having an oven is a little more precise. You're getting the heat that is completely evenly throughout the entire blade. So that way, like in 2019, when I made my first blade, if you noticed on the show, I had to put two forges together, and I created a cold spot, and that's what gave me the bend on the blade.
Mm-hmm.
This time I had a 52-inch tempering oven, which when you put it in, it's actually heating the entire blade. That gives you a lot more security, pretty much, and it's dialed to the T.
And what is it that's happening inside the metal when you temper it?
Thank you, because that was going to be my next question.
The tempering comes after the quenching. When you're finishing, pretty much hammering the weapon or the blade, you quench it, and what that does, it makes the blade very, very hard. However, it's very weak. It's kind of like an oxymoron, because all the atoms and all the molecules are actually hard, but it's brittle. Because as soon as you finish quenching in the oil, you can hit it on the anvil, most likely it's going to break. However, when you put it in the tempering oven, that's where all the chemicals and all the it's kind of scientific explaining, because you gotta when all the atoms and all the molecules and everything becomes very hard.
So they
And
bind together.
Correct. And
So-
that's where I put the blade inside the tempering oven at 400 degrees for 2 hours until you get a nice straw color all the way through the blade. And that's a telltale that you have a very, very hard blade.
Okay. So quick question. I don't remember seeing in the competition, I don't remember seeing these smiths tempering their blades once that time is up. But in some competitions I do, like usually when they have like the tournament competition, like the one that you were able to win. So
branches and stuff.
yeah, that's when I do see them with it. Do they actually have them?
Yes.
Do they have the contestants temper? So that's a step that they don't actually include in the competition.
Like on the show, you have 3 hours to forge a blade. So they give you the 3 hours. And for example, the first time I was in, they gave me a block of 1095 high carbon steel to make a stiletto.
Okay.
And once you have the shape of the blade, then those 3 hours, that's 1 day of filming. Overnight, they go ahead and they temper those blades for you. And then the next day, you do the other half of the filming.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's professionally done. So there's no, there's no short corners. I mean, everything is done professionally. The tempering is done professionally. So, yeah.
Well, it's obvious to me that they're doing it done correctly, because we're able to identify, see, and learn by modeling.
Absolutely.
If we're able to actually execute what we're seeing on TV, that tells you how much uptick it is, what it is that you guys are doing as competitors on this show. So that's pretty cool. I think that's any show that you can learn something from, to me, is a win. So it's kind of like that pottery show that they have them dry over, and they have that specific person that dries it or puts it in the kiln.
Right.
Got you. Okay. That's cool. That's awesome.
Well, it's just like you said, you learn something new every time, every time. When I went on the show the first time, I didn't know what a quad hollow grind was. Again, I was just used to making just regular, knives. Now, when they throw at you a quad hollow grind, it means that you have to put 4 edges and they have to be hollow. I just looked at the guy next to me and I saw what he was doing, and I just
can you clear up what a hollow grind is?
A hollow grind is
what the hollow grind is?
It's pretty much like a star. That's
okay.
The hollow grind. I don't know if I have anything.
Es como diamante.
That's the quad hollow grind. Yes.
Okay.
It's a quad hollow grind. You have it's kind of like a star, because you have the hollow grind on all 4.
Que es la que se hace a la daga.
Exactly.
The daggers.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, for example, let me see. No, this is a flat grind. Okay, this one right here. That's a hollow grind. If you see, you can see here where the hollow grind is actually, it's kind of like the shape of the wheel, because you're using a wheel to get, the edge. So you can see the coquille right there.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
And you can see the actual hollow grind, which it's kind of like it dips in, the wheel goes in. And then you have, of course, the flat grind, which is completely flat. It's just nice and flat.
Gorgeous.
Ladder.
So it's a ladder pattern Damascus.
Nice.
So there's a lot of different types of you can use a 4-inch wheel, a 6-inch wheel, 8, 12, 14. And the bigger the wheel, the bigger the hollow. The smaller the wheel, the smaller the hollow. So
now, as far as function is concerned, what kind of grind would be better for what function?
It all depends. Flat grind, it's good for chopping, things like that. Hollow grind, in my opinion, it's good for slicing, because you have an actual thinner edge.
Okay.
And since it's so thin, is it harder to keep straight in the quench?
Actually, I do not hollow grind before quenching because
Okay,
it's
first and
thinner
then
and
hollow
you
grind?
can get waves on it. What I do, I actually have the entire blade. I quench it, and afterwards, before I go to the tempering oven, I grind it.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it has to be done between the forge and the tempering oven.
That's how I
In
do
el
it.
medio.
No, that's how I do it.
Okay.
Now there are other smiths that they will go ahead and they will do all their grinding and everything before the quenching. But again, everybody has their own technique. I've tried different ways. I've ruined a couple of knives, when I quenched and you see that the edge is just like, like como carite, las curvas de carite,
Sí.
But and then, and I've
So,
talked to other smiths.
si están las pinas, si esas vueltas están en las pinas, ¿se pueden arreglar?
No, once it's done, because
The
it's
metal
so thin.
remembers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're working with.
So that's why they say metal remembers.
Yeah, and the more you quench, the more carbon you're burning.
So going back to another saying, I think I heard on the show, or maybe on one of the like Jason Knight videos and that I've seen. I think they say forge thick and grind thin, something like that.
Yes. Yeah, because if you have a warp, you can always grind it off.
Okay, so it gives you more to work with.
How would you know that one of those warps you can grind off, and how do you know when you can't?
It all depends how much of a warp you have, because sometimes you can have a tip warp where it's just a tip that is actually bending, or you can have it at the ricasso right at the edge, or you can have it in the middle. You can have an S. The way I do it, when I quench, you have like a 30-second window that if you have any kind of warpage, you can get it out. So I have 2 big pieces of aluminum, real thick aluminum. And what I do, I have them on a press. So as soon as I get the knife out of the quench, I put it in and I squeeze it down so that way it's completely flat and there's no warping.
Okay.
Which is, for those people of you who watch the show, is the same reason where you'll see them like press down on the hammer.
Yes.
Or put it in between oh my goodness, when I saw you do that on the show, I almost pissed myself. I was like, no. I hate it when people, I was like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and I know eventually I'll probably do something like that too. No, don't hit it when it's cold. Don't hit it when it's cold. And when I'm forging outside, I have to remind myself, yo, don't hit it when it's cold.
You have to.
Just
you
remind me. No, not one more.
You remind me too. Remember, every time, just about every time, you gotta tell me like that metal's cold. Put it back in.
Oh yeah. And the thing
but John, you're doing great. It's only taking you 3 weeks to bang in the tip of the blade.
I don't want to for like 2 hours.
I still have the knife that I made the first time 9 years ago. I still have it in my shop.
Oh yeah,
and it still has an edge.
Really?
Yep.
So
It's
I got
ugly.
a question for you. What made you feel that you were ready to compete in the Forged in Fire Championship like that? What gave you the I'm going to sign up?
To be honest, I've always been one of those that takes risk and is a team player.
Yeah.
And when I saw the show started, because I started forging shortly, like I said, 9 years ago, and I saw that they were going to start the show, and I was like, oh wow, and I waited a couple of years, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and put my application in. So I went online and I put my application, and my wife and I were actually on vacation when I got the call from the producers, and they were like, look, we're going to do a military
themed
episode. Yeah. And you're going to be competing for $50,000. There's 16 of you guys. Are you interested? I'm like, yeah, and of course, my wife was all on into it. And she was like, well, you know what? It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. It's about being there because you already got selected for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there was, for what I understand, there was over 20,000 applications for 2019. Wow. So, they do background check, they do criminal check, because, they don't want to put anybody on the
You got a whole bunch of knives there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think of that. That makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Wait, is that why they barely had any Puerto Ricans in it?
It's funny.
Do you see why we have the disclaimer now? Do you see?
Yes.
You understand?
It was me this time.
Well, it's funny. But like I said, the other guys that I competed with, John, it was a command sergeant major special forces. It was a sniper. It was a sergeant. It was myself. And I mean, we still keep in touch. We created a bond, even, the Navy guys, the Army guys, all branches. When we were there, it doesn't matter what branch you were. We were all brothers in arms, and we were having a ball.
Right.
Yeah, even off camera, we were having fun. And we have kept in touch ever since. I mean, I've talked to Tyler. He's the Army guy that won the whole thing. And I talk to him just about every other day. So, yeah.
That's cool.
So then in 2021.
And Ethan, right? You got to see Ethan in Texas?
Oh, yeah. Ethan is like my son. I tell you what, Ethan, that's... He just turned 30, and our oldest.
It surprised me when the pommel fell off, and it was like that. That was his blade looked absolutely gorgeous.
Oh no, Ethan is an amazing bladesmith. I do have to say, I give him my hats off to him. He is museum art. I mean, when we were competing, they gave us fish hooks, ball bearings, and pieces of saw blades, and he created a beautiful, amazing, blade. And I've always given him credit, and his work is off the charts. But the night before, we were all, just having a drink and joking, and I said, you know what? Don't be surprised if something happens. And he said, don't say nothing. Well, next thing you know, unfortunately, the pommel fell off, but the producers, they say the test that we did with the torpedoes was one of the most crucial and hard tests that they have ever done. We had to actually wear hearing protection because when they were hitting the torpedoes, it was so loud.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I can imagine. It's kind of like Bugs Bunny, checking to see if they're judged or something like that back in the day. And then it's like, bing! And it's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. But
what happened, John?
No, I'm just saying with him mentioning that, I think that maybe answers my next question. But Joy and I, almost without fail, whenever we hang out together and watch an episode or two, when they do like the endurance test that they smash it on a whatever.
Yeah,
we always cringe and oh my god, like Joy grabs me like this, like he's giving birth and shit. It's horrible. So that being said, was out of all those tests that you and your pieces had to go through, was there any that stand out to you that made you cringe the most? That made you like spit out your heart almost?
They had to bang on.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I guess the torpedo one. I guess that answered my question.
Yeah. So far, I have made 5 weapons for the show. Yeah. I'm one of the few that have made actually 5 weapons. Wow. Because I made the stiletto, the Army Officer Saber. Right. I made the 1910 bolo bayonet. Mm-hmm. I did the K-bar, and I also did the Cowboy Saber. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say that torpedo was the one that it just sends chills off your back.
Which one was your favorite blade?
So when you saw it, Garrett, the first one that went through, when his blade broke, it literally hit the ceiling and came back down. I mean, Ben Abbott was not holding back when he was hitting.
He never does.
They don't hold back. You can tell.
Oh yeah, but that's what the show is about, to prove what you can do, mm-hmm. and putting the blade through strength and durability for to see what you can do. I mean, you're not gonna just go ahead and tap it. You're gonna go ahead and pretty much beat the crap out of it, because that's you gotta show the strength.
Dale con gusto, o Dale Sin Pena, whichever one works.
No,
Yeah,
y
exactly.
aunque uno salga segundo o tercero, aunque lo eliminen en la primera, no significa que los cuchillos son una porquería, because look at what they have to go through. These are tests that you're not going to put your knife through unless you just don't like the knife.
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's another thing. When you're on the show, you're on a time clock. Okay. And you have 3 hours, and those 3 hours don't stop. In the history of the show of 9 years, they have only stopped it once. And that's because there was an injury, you know. But when that clock starts and you look at the clock and you got 3 hours, you look at the clock again, 30 minutes already went by. It doesn't stop. You can have an amazing bladesmith that creates thousands of dollars worth of knives. But that's because you're in your own environment, you're in your home, you're in your own shop, and you know your shop. When you're in someone else's shop and you are on the clock, you know, a lot of you can skip a step, or you can, you know, get nervous. Or me, when I went, I was just there for have fun. I was there to play with all the toys. Whether I was just there to have fun.
But you see, that's the thing. When I see competitors, anybody doing anything and having fun, it's like watching the MMA fights, right? It's always dangerous when you see that fighter enjoying themselves in the octagon. Yeah. When you see them smiling like, woo, let's go. And it's like, huh, now you really got something on your hands because they're enjoying themselves. You see what I mean? It's just like cooking. And I figure, right? The competition is like cooking in somebody else's kitchen. You're not sure where everything is. You know what you need to do. You have your basics, but you got to kind of like look around and ask, do you have this? Do you have that? Do I have this? You know, you're trying to make do with what you have. Vamos inventarnos algo aquí.
Exactly.
You know, and try to make it good enough so that everyone can eat. So I can assimilate to that.
Yeah.
No, like en cualquier momento te pueden pedir las cosas específicas. Tiene que ser así.
Yeah.
I don't want your version of this. I want this one.
And that's the thing, you know, when you're making a knife and you have 3 weeks to make it and you make it pristine, you know, you have 3 hours with whatever crappy metal there is. I mean, one of my good friends, Jonathan Allen, he's a Fortune Fire champion 2017. They give him a motorcycle. So to scavenger parts from a motorcycle, you know, to create a knife, and he ended up, you know, winning the champion. Same thing with me. They gave me fish hooks.
I don't remember that episode. What did he use?
It was season 5, episode 11, I think it is. And he used the disc of the wheels to make a blade. Yeah. From the motorcycle. And my other friend, Billy, he's also a Fortune Fire champion. He had to scavenger from a tank. A military tank.
I remember that one.
Yeah. He actually lives about, I want to say probably about a couple of hours from me. But, I mean, that's just to show you that you can make a knife out of anything. As long as you have an idea. And that's another thing. When they tell you what you're going to be making, you have to completely switch your brain from, hey, I'm in my shop, I'm using good steel, to what in the world am I going to do with fish hooks and ball bearings?
Yeah.
Pero los fish hooks se ven. I love the way the fish hooks look on a Damascus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That the way como que se quedan así como que outlined and
yeah.
Wow.
That's because of the nickel inside in the fish hooks. Yeah. And
really?
Yeah. And when you have small pieces of metal like that, the best way to do a canister. I love doing canisters. That is one thing that a lot of the smith, they cringe. They don't want to do canister. Jay Nielsen is an amazing bladesmith when it comes to canister Damascus. And I've had the honor to talk to him and everything. And, you know, when it comes to canister, it's like a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what the price is going to be inside, because you can just throw a whole bunch of stuff. And when you draw out the blade and you etch it, I mean, it can be the most beautiful pattern you can imagine. So,
yeah, I guess that's part of the admiration that I have for the skills of Ben Abbott. Because he's like, okay, I'm gonna cut it like this, then I'm gonna twist it this way. I'm gonna make sure this is here, this is
right.
there. and it comes out dead ass the way he says, I'm gonna make it look like this.
Yeah,
holy
that's
shit,
why
he did it, and it almost looks like he painted or etched it on.
Yeah, and that's why he's a 3-time champion. Yeah, and I tell you, all the judges, I mean, off camera, they are nice. I don't care what anybody says. They are the nicest people. They will help you in any way, shape, or form. They will not hold back. I mean, they pull you aside and say, hey, this is what you're doing. This is what, how I would do it, and they're great. They're great. I mean, my wife and I, we met David Baker when we went to the Atlanta show, and we're just, high fives and hugging and say, oh, I love this guy. He invited me to his shop in Virginia, and same thing with, Jason Knight. And I mean, yeah, they're great guys. I will never trade it for the world. So,
I think there was only one time that Jay got mad. Do you remember that episode, Joey?
I mean, it's Jay. Of course he's gonna get mad. He has a temper. What are you talking about?
No. But mad, like, even for him. I don't recall which episode it was, but during the first part of the episode when the knives are being made, the guy didn't like forge his knife. He like casted it.
That was season 1.
Yes, that was season 1? Okay.
Yes, that was season 1. Yeah. And Jay Nielsen said this is forged in fire, not grind in fire. Yes, I remember that.
That's the dude that used the Ferrier's rasp, right?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
We were just watching that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were just watching that one, and we were saying the same thing. Okay, I remember.
Yeah.
So you were saying before, if I can, right? You were saying before that the process that you go through when you're making your knives, you have Taino custom knives, right? Where people can anybody purchase your knives like online or something like that? Is that something that we can?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, all my knives are like the coquille. They're one of a kind.
Beautiful.
Because you take the coquille out of Puerto Rico and it doesn't survive. So that's another reason why I chose the coquille, because all my knives are one of a kind. I make them on order. I don't duplicate. None of my knives are equal. So when you're purchasing one, it's one of one. It's not one of 20 or one of thousands. It's actually one of one. First edition. That's it.
That's why they're custom knives.
Correct.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless you like plasma cut them, don't they all pretty much have their own personality one way or another? Even if you try to make the same knife 10 times, it'll be 10 different blades in one way or another, right? Aunque sea un detalle.
Yes, that's correct. The only time that I have duplicate, it was because my boss, where I work at, he wanted 4 identical knives for 4 of his military guys that they served together, and he wanted to present it. And that is the only time that I have done the same blade, same handle, same shape. That is the only time. But again, I did something different. One of them had hammer marks. The other one had pin marks. The other one had scratch marks. The other one. So even though it was the same shape, there was a little bit of difference between them. And that's the reason why I always do something different.
That's awesome.
You said something interesting. I have a quick question. You said it. One of them had hammer marks. So I think I have one of the blades. I don't remember which one it is downstairs. It's not much, but it does still have a hammer mark. Will that compromise the integrity of the structure of the? It won't make it weaker.
Not at all. It kind of gives a character, and it shows that it's handmade. A lot of people, they love it. They come to me and say, Fermin, when you forge a knife, can you leave the hammer marks? Because not only gives a character, but it looks different. It looks homemade. So
okay.
Now you have
I was trying to get it out, and I'm like, I can't grind this out. It doesn't look bad, but I think I fucked up.
And what? I said, I like it. I can tell that it was handmade. That was my response
my wife loves
to it.
The hammer marks too. Yeah.
I gotta make.
I want to go back real quick. When we were talking about the thickness when you're going into the quench.
Okay.
roundabout, what's the thinnest you can get away with? Like where's that width to where it's like, okay, if you forged it out already to this thickness, just throw it away. You're not quenching that thing unless you want a donut or a ribbon.
And kind of adding to that, when it comes to quenching, do you have any a favorite as far as like what you like quenching it in?
Oh, that's a good question too.
Yeah. Joey, let me answer your question real quick. It's a preference. If I'm making a fillet knife, I tend to go very thin, but not thin enough that I know it's going to warp, and all that comes with time. I pretty much eye it.
Okay.
For example, this sushi knife that I made.
Ooh.
It's actually a Damascus, and it's actually raindrop Damascus.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know,
Oh,
and you can see how thin it is.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Wow.
You know, and it's got black African wood, and then it's got maple on it.
Beautiful.
So, but again, it doesn't matter pretty much. You can be 1/8 of an inch. You can be 11/32 of an inch. If you want it thinner, you can always grind. And the thing is, you can always grind, but you can never add.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
if you want something thick like this one, you know, the Damascus, and then you have the thickness, because again, it's more of a hunting knife. So you can grind it. If you want a chef knife, here's here's another chef knife.
Gorgeous.
See how thin it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends. Like I said, you can always grind, but you can never add because the blade is already done.
So something like that chef's knife, when that went into the quench, how thick was it? Was it much thicker than what it is now?
Probably about 1 millimeter thicker. Yeah.
Really?
Just about 1 millimeter thicker than what it is now.
Right. I figured it'd be more.
There's been a few things that I've worked on that I was actually afraid to continue because I felt it was getting too thin, but it wasn't anywhere as thin as that.
My rule of thumb is anything thinner than a chavito is too thin. Anything thicker than
I was nowhere near.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it with time comes experience, and like I said, when I quench, I put the blade between the two aluminums, so that way it's nice and flat.
So the aluminums are kind of like, would it be something like the frame of a metal, like the metal bed frames, or for a mattress or something like that? Can I chop off 2 pieces of that and have that as a press? Okay, that's what I
pretty
thought.
much anything that is straight.
Straight. It has to be
You can
straight.
put it in the center and just yes.
Okay.
And John, to answer your question, one of the guys that I work with, he's one of the doctors. I work at the VA hospital, and every year they cook a turkey, and they use peanut oil. And they actually give me 5 gallons of peanut oil, and that's what I actually use to do my quenching. And it's funny you mentioned that, because when we were filming and I quenched, the producer, he says, is somebody cooking a turkey? Because I can smell it. I said, yeah, that's the oil. That's the peanut oil. Because that's what they used to do the turkey. So, but yeah, I have about 10 gallons right now. And before that, I was just using regular synthetic motor oil.
Yeah.
That's what we're using.
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes
we tried, what was it? Canola?
Yes.
Canola.
I did. I actually went to the dollar store and I got $1 liters of canola oil, and that's what I use. So as long as you heat up the oil before you quench, that it's very rare that you will get a warp, in my opinion.
Okay.
With the canola?
Any kind of oil. As long as you warm it up before you go to the quench.
So I read somewhere that when you're quenching, while I was doing research, because he was trying to quench, right? We were nervous. It's the first time. And he's like, it didn't harden. It's still biting. I'm not sure what I did wrong. So I said, maybe it's the oil that we have. Let's try to find motor oil that might work better, because we use the canola oil. And I was reading that, certain oils are better for quenching than others. What is your take on that?
My take on it,
Mm-hmm.
when the blade is hot enough that it becomes non-magnetic, have a magnet, put it on it, it becomes non-magnetic, and you quench. And I'm going to give you the same idea that was given to me by a former Fortune Fire champion. When you quench, leave the blade in there. Don't bring it out and get a big ball of fire. That's all for TV. Leave it in there and go north to south. When you're quenching, go up and down and north to south, up and down. Because what that is doing is it's actually cooling the entire blade at once. And then just pull it out, check to see if you have any warps. When you check for hardness, don't do it when the blade is still hot. Wait, clean it out. Exactly, and then get the la fila, the file, and then just run it. It's gonna bite a little bit. Yeah, I mean it's a file. That's what it's made for, but it's not gonna actually dig into it. So, but yeah, and you'll be able to hear it again. That's something you will develop with time. When you skip, you'll just hear it.
Yeah. I mean,
he's always working in the shop tonight, baby. I ain't got work tomorrow.
I gotta wait till Saturday. This is cool.
Oh well. Llega a la casa más a menudo, mijo.
The Forge is going to be busy on Saturday. You missed on that one, John.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
We tried it with the canola, and it was biting hard. And so we went again, same thing, and I had the magnet right there next to me. Checked it. Okay, it feels the same. All right, it looks pretty much the same color. Boom. I didn't bring it completely out because I didn't want the fireball. And and I felt like the bubbling kind of cooled down. Y lo dejé hasta que yo la pudiera tocar sin quemarme.
Right.
And as soon as I tested it, emotional. So we thought it was the oil.
Right. Yeah, and that's what a lot of Smith on the show, they make that mistake. They want, the big ball of fire, the big TV thing, Yeah, it's called a dragon's breath. It looks cool and everything, but when you're competing for $10,000, to me, that goes out the window, And they don't wait till the blade is cool to the hand to test, if it's like, if you saw my show, Jay Nielsen, he said, I don't know if that blade is fully hardened. And I took the file and skid right through it. So.
And when you first pull it out the quench, should you, at least on my eyes, and I think on maybe one or two of the episodes, como que I saw them at first, it didn't like completely bite. I guess you can call it a nibble. And then after that, it started sliding. Does the little scale that it forms around it kind of hold it back a little bit at principio?
Yeah, that's the carbon that is being quemando por afuera. Right. That's the carbon.
That's what it is? Okay.
And that's why I say, make sure when you have the blade and you quench it and you bring it out, get a rag and just clean all that out. That way you don't get a little bit of scale and kind of like bites into it or goes.
So it gives you a false concept of whether or not it's hard. You might make the mistake of trying to re-quench because you think it's not hard. Okay.
Right. And like I said earlier, the more you quench, the more carbon you're actually burning off the metal.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So I have a question about
all the cracks and stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I knew that was coming. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, you know it. So I'm over here. I'm overthinking. I'm an overthinker. That's just in my nature, right? I want to be a perfectionist. I want to do something for the very first time to perfection. I know that's a problem. I know it's not realistic. So I'm working on it. But I'm going to tell you how, this is how it is. But I do have quite a conundrum with one of the handles for the what is it, the charai that we're working on, or we call it the charai, right? And
I think they pronounce it charai. I think they did
the
on
charai or something like that. Well, we're gonna call it charai because
we read everything in Spanish, so
hablamos español aquí, so we can go back and forth, right?
We say it phonetically, yeah.
So ultimately, Joey basically helped me out, and he made this blade, and he made a guard for the blade.
Okay.
And we're good like that. But I realized that the guard is kind of like curved to the point where I have to try to when I'm making the handle for it, I want to be able to make sure everything is nice and tight. So here's the thing. It's not going to be a full tang. It's going to be like a half hidden tang, I guess is the way to call it, where we can see the spine of the tang.
Wait. They called it a disappearing tang. A disappearing tang.
I don't know what
que
that
parece que va full y de momento se desaparece.
Right.
Y se mete they usually use they pin it at the end, is it?
Well, no, we're not pinning it at the end because the end of it is still, the length of the tang is not as long as the handle will be.
Okay.
So, and basically it's going to have 3 pins in it because I already have the pins set for it. But I still haven't cut off the wood because I wanted to have, basically I wanted to be as flush as possible up to the guard of the actual blade. So that, you know, because it's a fast, slick blade. And since we also practice martial arts. We also practice the Filipino stick and knife fighting, exactly like what Doug Marcaida practices.
I'm gonna run downstairs and try to find it.
See if you can find it. So we do practice that, and it's like ripe for that, either that or slaughtering pigs. One of the two is really good for both of them. So eso es eso es para el lechón de las navidades o es para, you know, o para filar one way or another. But it's a very, very light, fast knife, which is why I was like, we need to put a guard on this. There is no way I'm gonna feel comfortable making a handle on it without a guard, because it is such a thin and fast, lightning fast blade, and you have to stab with it. It is definitely a stabbing blade. Okay. So I was like, I need a guard for this. So he worked on something, and I'm like, I still feel that the guard might have been, you know, curved a little bit. He didn't want to curve it too much. I don't know if it's too long, but I'm concerned about how much space I'm going to have between the guard and the actual handle. I'm trying to get it flush up to it. What recommendations do you have if I have a guard that's curved? He's going to bring it up now. So I'm like, I'm kind of stuck here. I don't know what to do. So I kind of left it alone. I'm like, stop, don't mess it up, because it's going to be my first handle. I want it to look like.
Well, there are different things that you can do. I have a piece of marble in my shop that you can actually put sandpaper, because it's nice and flush. It's nice and flat. And kind of just sand it down to where the two pieces actually meet. Or you can put leather in between it, and the leather will actually take the actual shape.
Okay.
And of course, you can decorate it. You can put a piece of leather and a piece of metal, and a piece of leather and a piece of metal. Or, I mean, but make sure that the leather is completely soaked in glue, in epoxy.
In the epoxy, right? I got the 5-minute epoxy. I'm a little familiar with it because I've worked with it, fixing other things with it. So I'm like, okay, I've worked with epoxy before, but just to glue things together, not quite for knife making.
Now on my yeah, I see what you mean now. Yes,
you see what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I know that we can get this a little bit further up. That, you know, as far as I'm trying to get it. I'm doing mirror camera work.
Go like this to the guard, porque ella llega.
Right.
Okay.
I llego nice and flush, right?
Yeah, right up to the ricasso. Yes.
Okay. So my question is here, because the handle is going to be flat up to here, but then the rest of it is going to be thicker here, so I'll be able to grip it because this is kind of thin.
Right.
So I'm going to give it a little bit more of like maybe a swell or whatever. But my question is getting right in here. I want to make sure that this que no baile, que quede nice and tight up against here, because as you can see, it's definitely a stabby one, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I don't want to I want to protect the user at all times with this guard.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I had, but no, I don't have. I think I sold it at my last show. But I actually did one with I had a leather belt, and I actually cut the belt just like on the show, you know. Okay. And again, it just takes
the stacking.
Yeah. You can do the stack until you actually clear that bend, and then you can push the wood into it.
I like that idea. Yeah, I'm excited.
It actually looks pretty good. I mean, a lot of the K-bars, they actually came with the leather, with the, you know, the original K-bars, they came with the leather handles.
Okay. Yeah. I like that idea. And that way
so when you're doing the leather stacked, do you have to go piece by piece, or can you like glue and clamp them all together, make one solid block, and then cut it from there?
Me personally, I do one by one. What I do, I get the epoxy, and I have everything cut, everything measured, everything already, and I pretty much grab it with one hand, get some epoxy on it, and stack it. So it's wipe and stack the whole entire thing. Then when it gets to the top, you have to squeeze it completely. So you can get either a piece of metal with a hole that is going to go over the tang and get a clamp and squeeze everything in. That way, you don't make the hole, because if you make the actual leather stack and then you put a hole through it, it's going to have a gap and you're going to have to re-glue it all over again.
Yeah.
So when you're actually gluing it on the tang, it's actually creating more of a suction and it's keeping everything together.
I agree. I was looking at that because, I fin al cabo, artsy, crafty teacher making things fit one way or another. We got to figure out a way to do this. So, it's just like, okay, yeah, I think I understand what they're trying to do there. So here's another project that we're working on.
Okay.
Right. This is for a friend.
That's the one with the hammer marks.
Okay.
Right. That's the one with the hammer marks. But I love the way it looks. I love the way it looks. It looks very, I'm trying
rustic.
To show.
Yep. I see it. Yep.
I love it. It's gorgeous. Right. But you see how the tang is here? So I have no idea how to approach this one. And I know that Joey gave me suggestions, but I'd love to hear your suggestions.
On that one, again, you can get a square off the ricasso and where the guard goes. And actually, you can either do a straight guard, just make it straight, up and down, flush, just like the other one that you had.
Okay.
That will be because that piece right there, where you have your two fingers towards the end, is very thin. Yeah. So you might want to, that will become what's called a hidden tang.
Right.
Usually a full tang is almost the same size as the actual blade.
Right. In this case, this would be a hidden tang, which is what I was going for. But like I said, I recommendations is what I'm looking for. I'm like, I got questions too. I know Joey has questions, but I got questions too. I'm not gonna. We're picking you left and right, bro. All right, last one. So we have this guy.
Nice. Yeah,
I know it's gorgeous.
I
Which one is it? We call this one the fighter. Is this the bull shark?
The teacher's scalpel.
Oh, this is mine. This is the teacher's. This is mine. Oh, this one's mine. This one's mine. All right. So this one is, I love this one. It already feels comfortable in my hand because he kind of like made it custom for me. Like I said, we practice with the martial arts or whatever. And I hope I never have to have this knife. I can't bring a knife to school. It's illegal. We don't do that. But regardless, I love this. And I also I told him, I was like, I want an apple seed grind on this because it's the teacher's scalpel. So it only makes sense. So any recommendations to just follow through? Should I have a guard at all? I mean, it's really comfortable. It looks like it could just follow right up flush to here. So what do you recommend?
Because that is a full tang, you don't need a guard unless you're going to do, it's called a
bolster or something like
bolsters,
that?
Yes.
Okay.
But I already see that you have the holes already made.
Yes.
So just like this one, okay. These are scales.
Yes. Okay.
Now with a grinder, you can do a finger.
A finger
on
well.
A groove. Okay.
Yeah, like a finger groove, and of course, it just
fits perfectly.
It fits right there. With the scales, it just makes it a little bit more sturdier because you have full tang. And it all depends on your taste, but me personally, on that one that you're holding, I will definitely do the scales.
Okay. So. Cool. Those are the questions that I had for him because I got a 3-day weekend. I'm looking forward.
I have some handle questions.
Okay.
What would the function of the knife affect your choice in wood for the handle?
No. Not at all. No. I have used everything from pine wood that has been stabilized to ironwood. This one over here is actually desert ironwood. It's one of the hardest woods that I have ever worked with. I mean, it's very hard. Um, this one over here is actually came from my backyard. It's stabilized dogwood.
So when you say stabilized, what do you mean? And dogwood has beautiful flowers, by the way.
Yes.
When you say stabilized, what do you mean?
Okay. In my shop, I have two containers. One of them is when I do the epoxy, and then the other one is when I do the stabilizing. The stabilizing is I have this liquid called cactus juice. It's a two-part epoxy, and I put it inside of the vacuum chamber, and it actually sucks all the air out of the wood and impregnates it with the actual epoxy, the liquid.
Cool.
Then afterwards, when there's no more bubbles coming out, you take it out, you wrap it in aluminum foil, and you put it in the oven at 200 degrees for an hour. And what that does, it activates the process of the epoxy and just cures everything. So a piece of wood that probably was 5 ounces, when it's actually, stabilized, it's probably going to be 25 ounces because of the epoxy inside.
It's so saturated that lleno.
Yep, exactly. And like I said, you can use different colors. Like I said, this one, the red one, and the green one, and then of course my favorite, which is a curly maple, which is the big one, and you can see.
Oh wow!
The curly maple.
Oh, that's gorgeous! I love it.
And then on this side,
beautiful.
It's the curly maple. If you can just hold on just 1 second, I'm gonna go ahead and show you something that I'm also working with.
Yeah, no problem.
Right.
Yes,
Cool.
definitely.
Woo! We haven't, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed. We're getting taken to school today.
Now, I just went to the last show.
Yes.
In Texas, and I was able to acquire some. I guess you could say accents for some of the woods, because I'm starting to do hybrids, and I'm using wood as well as bone. So this one right here, this is giraffe bone that I'm actually going to incorporate.
I've seen that in the pantry on the show, the giraffe bone.
Oh wow!
That looks almost like marble.
Yeah, and then this one here, which they almost didn't let me come through customs, but yeah, this one here is zebra wood. I mean, a zebra stabilized bone, and again, it goes through the same process as stabilizing. So of course, all these
le da un brillo también.
Yes, of course, because the epoxy gets harder, and of course, here's some more different. You can see. There we go.
Oof. But those colors
and again,
are gorgeous.
These, yeah, for real.
What do you do?
So some of these right here, I would put another piece of wood in the back, so it would be kind of like. I'm going to use my phone thing, so it will become like a 2-piece, and this can work as a bolster or it can work as an accent. So I have several pieces that I'm going to be working on. I just finished one. Here's another piece, and this is giraffe bone, beautiful piece. And I already started. Oh, there we go. I already started with for the hidden tank.
Wow.
The hidden tank. Yeah. Okay.
So again, it will be kind of like
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, and
ahí está el arte, babe. That's the art behind making this blades. This is why I'm not surprised that Joey took to it like a duck to water. Because I mean, if you look behind him, you'll see that the art is definitely prevalent in our house. John is an artist himself. His grandfather was a well-known artist in Jauco, a local well-known artist at Jauco. They call him Enono. Is that what they call Papa?
Enono.
Enono.
Yeah, Enono.
That was his name. He passed away a couple years ago. But the art is definitely it's the reason why we have this podcast, and I like to reiterate every time we have an episode. I always try to bring it back. Why do we have this podcast? The mission and vision of this podcast is to bring back, it kind of was born throughout the pandemic because there were so many people who were just sitting, not knowing what to do.
Right.
And I heard that a lot. And I'm like, why? There's so much to do at your house. why don't you do this? And I'm like, people don't know what they can do.
Yeah.
We need to let them know. We need to share what we know, and we need to invite people to help teach us. So this is kind of like a self and yet interchangeable exchange of ideas, exchange of talents, exchange of being able to share what we know, because we do follow the model of each one teach one. And it's important to have this information, because we had people who were living in apartments who didn't know that they can grow food out of a pot on their on their shelf. And so now she took her whole balcony in her apartment and now she's growing a whole garden in her tiny little apartment, but you can do it, right? We had other people who like, oh wow, I went out in my backyard and I started poking around in the ground. I was like, yes, poke around in the ground, because you need to be self-sufficient,
right?
Because because of the pandemic, because transport is not the way it used to be, we're still seeing right now the economy, how things have gone up in prices, but also the issue that we are so dependent on those supermarkets, those stores. And buy local if you can, but you can also grow locally yourself. So learn how to do these things.
Absolutely.
But when it came to bladesmithing, I'm like, that's a skill that we really don't have anymore. This is really difficult to be able to just pick up on. There is no knife making hack. Okay.
Right.
You got a hammer, you got to bring it up to temperature. There is an art behind it. And that's another thing. It's also another form of expression.
Yeah.
Los Caribeños, we are expressive. We love art. That's in our nature, in our DNA. To be able to make beauty out of every mundane thing that we use every day. It must be beautiful, because it's a representation of what we have around us. I love the fact that you have you're using your backyard resources, which is what I want to do. I want to be able to, because we have tons of wood. They cut a maple tree across the street. We were very upset when we saw that the maple tree went away, because it was beautiful. I'm definitely a tree hugger, so I get mad whenever I see that cut down, that's not doing any damage to any houses. It wasn't doing any damage. It was just living. So that hurt me. So there goes Sandy and Joey with their wheelbarrow. Come on, let's go. We're hawking as many hunks of wood as we can to at least salvage that, to give it to good use.
Right.
Aunque sea para las orquídeas
and a piece of that became our first anvil.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And so the stump of it became the first anvil. That's correct. You did use that for your first anvil. So, but that's what I want to do. I want to be able to see and use primary resources, natural primary resources, and see, okay, we want to make it more beautiful. We want to make it, we can strengthen it with other things. But the truth of the matter is our ancestors have been doing this for a while. Maybe even in the Caribbean, they might not have been working with the same metal ore as we're working with now.
Right.
But they understood that they had to make something out of something. They had to cut something. They had to bang something to make it out of something. So let's tap back into that, because it's obvious that we need those survival skills. You never know what can happen.
Right.
And I don't mean to sound like a pessimist or anything like that, but the truth of the matter is a lot of people realize how unprepared they were and how much they depended on commerce.
Yeah.
They allowed themselves to be too comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, bladesmithing's been around for, since the beginning of time.
Yes.
My wife and I, we actually travel a lot for our anniversary, and we went to Barcelona. And in one of the places in Barcelona, they actually had a sword that was found, in una finca, in a place somewhere, and it was still sharp, and it was still, from the year 700s. Same thing when we went to Ireland. We were able to see firsthand a lot of the bladesmithing. I was able to visit one of the bladesmithing guys in Ireland, and I gave him one of my knives, and I got one of his hammers, which that was one of the hammers that I used on the show.
Yes.
And it's, and now we're getting ready to head out to Hawaii in a couple of weeks, but
Sí, por la promesa. You can't go back on your word now, mijo.
I know. She told me, she said, you said it on national television, so
that's right. Tell her I bear witness. I bear witness.
You hear that?
I got your back, Mama. Oh, I've been with you. You gotta take her.
Yeah, and then hopefully next year we're going to be going to Copenhagen, and that's where the Vikings originated, and we're looking forward to it. And
Oh my gosh, it's
yeah,
gonna be exciting.
That's
You gotta
yeah.
come back with pictures. You gotta come back on the show and show us what you saw over there.
Oh yeah, I post that. But speaking a
Have
little
you
bit of
ever
everything,
used have you ever used materials from the island?
yes. The last time that we went to Puerto Rico, we went to Gosilandia. I'm sure you're familiar with Gosilandia.
That's in our neck of the woods. Yeah,
Yeah,
we know
Okay.
since it was originally called Charcola Leche. Yeah.
we call
Okay.
it the locals call it charcola leche. The ones that are from there back in the day, we call it
Well,
charcola leche.
that's where I proposed when we first got married and everything. Yeah.
Oh.
So there was actually an artisan that gave me a piece of wood that only grows in Puerto Rico, and I have that stashed away because I want to make a knife for me, and
Is
it's
it
going to
Guayacán?
be, the lady told me that it was actually used by the
Curanderos?
boat builders to make the pulleys. That's why it's such a hard wood.
Es Guayacán.
Oh.
What you
Guayacán,
got here
yes,
is Guayacán.
Guayacán.
Okay, cool.
And I still have it, but
Have
yeah,
you ever-
I have a
So have you worked with it yet?
not
Oh.
yet. I
Hold
still
on,
have it
hold
put
on.
aside.
Ay,
I think
papa.
Paco is on. I don't know if he's watching. Paco, if you are watching, any suggestions for Fermin as far as working with Guayacán? Let us know, put it on. And then if anything, we'll just, you can look at the comments or whatever, or we'll add you with this recommendation. Because
Awesome.
we have a couple friends that do work with that are familiar with the natural woods in the island. And they,
Okay.
and they keep their eyes on the podcast and whatnot. So Paco, if you have any
El
suggestions,
Guayacán es bien difícil para bregar. Había un artesano que hacía pilones y cosas con Guayacán de moca. I don't remember his name right off the bat.
This is his work.
And
Okay.
yeah, he burnt out 3 industrial drills in
Wow.
less than a year.
Damn.
Es
Wow.
el único madera de lo que yo sepa that the termites will only try to bite into the bark and they never get inside the tree.
So
Y
here's the story
you
about
know
this
que el
series.
comején está donde sea.
Yeah.
Con el Guayacán no puede.
Yeah.
It's
Now I also
really,
use a lot of
really hard.
I use a lot of mango, a lot of tamarindo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Ceiba. I've
I
used
had
some
no
ceiba.
idea the tamarindo wood was so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Zigzags. And
Yep.
Okay, so here's a promise. We're going to the island this weekend as a thank you for you coming to
not
our
this weekend,
show tonight.
this summer. I wish it was this weekend.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, yo, y'all invited me over. What do you think? If I come through on Saturday and the house is empty, I'm gonna be pissed, yo.
So as a thank
At least
you,
you have the
right,
forge to
for
yourself.
coming on our show, we want to send you a care package of
Oh, awesome.
pieces of wood from our farm. Right?
Okay.
That you can do whatever you want to do with, but mira, aquí hay un canto de, and we'll label it very clearly mango because we have mango trees,
Okay.
tamarindo because we have tamarindo trees, and any other tree that we can find. We're gonna make a care package for you for at least the natural woods from the island. Y tal vez un poquito de café lareño. Because
Okay.
my people are from Lares, and you gotta have that coffee. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
That coffee is the best one you can find. So we're gonna send you some coffee and some wood
Awesome.
as a thank you.
Thank
Ahorita,
you.
off camera, whatever, you just text Joey your address and we'll mail it to you.
Awesome. Awesome.
As a thank you for showing up to us. I'm not trying to close anything up. I just want to let you know, yes, because I'm already looking. I don't know how to repay you for your time.
Oh my God, no! It was a pleasure. It was an honor.
Let me tell you something. This man, my husband, has been he's been fanboying so hard since he was in contact with you. And I'm excited.
I told him.
I'm excited. It's always good to see somebody kind of find something and then be good at it and then get excited about it. It's kind of like the same way I'm at right now with my acrylic painting. I'm like, I'm excited. I can't wait to paint, because I'm just playing with it. I don't have anyone guiding me except for YouTube. So the fact that you guys found a way, I think it's a beautiful beginning of a wonderful relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I told Joey, I said, if you have any questions.
I love the fact that from de Yauco, la familia, ese vínculo ahí de la isla is really nice. But yeah, I'm still going to be picking your brain, buddy, so you tiene un hermanito y una hermanita acá,
Absolutely. Same here.
Y otro hermanito acá, aunque él es mi hijo,
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, any Joe, if you have any questions, John, if you guys have any questions, and Sandy, if you have any kind of questions about forging or anything, please, you have my number. Feel free to give me a call, whatever. We can FaceTime. I'm also gonna go through my shop and see what I have extra, and I'm gonna get your address and stuff, and we'll
swap addresses.
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool. Sounds good.
Everybody watching the show, this was amazing. Thank you, Fermin. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, John. This was great. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll talk in the studio. Everybody who's been watching, this is Joey Zaza from Torre Del Viejo. This was the Shoot the Shit podcast. Fermin, other side, right here.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great one.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.